All right, so today we're diving deep into the world of internships, but not from the angle you might be expecting. We're not going to be talking about like resume tips or how to ace an interview. Instead, we're going to go behind the scenes with this academic paper. It follows a business internship director at a university in Latin America.
Oh, that's interesting. It's like a look at the inner workings of how these programs actually function.
Yeah, exactly. This is the person who's connecting students with companies,
Yeah.
figuring out what everybody's expectations are and making sure everyone gets something out of it. And what really surprised me reading this was how much strategic planning is involved. Like, the day starts with data, not just emails, but like really digging into student performance and feedback from the companies.
And they're not just looking at numbers for fun,
Mhm.
right? This director's using this data to find trends and actually make the program better. For example, they found that students who were really good at creative writing, they were actually excelling in technical internships, which is kind of unexpected.
Wow. Yeah, that's not what you'd usually think. Makes you realize that sometimes the most valuable skills aren't the obvious ones. So what did they do with that information?
Well, they didn't just ignore it. They actually created a whole new workshop focused on communication across different disciplines, recognizing that being able to clearly explain complex technical stuff is a huge asset no matter what field you're in.
I love that. It's that kind of forward thinking that I think is so important. It's not just about placing students somewhere. It's about thinking about what they need and helping them be successful. So data is a big part of the morning. What happens next?
So mid-morning is all about building relationships. The director meets with people from the companies, but it's not like a typical meet and greet.
Yeah, I was picturing like a lot of handshakes, maybe some vague promises. What do these meetings actually look like?
It's more about really getting down to business. The director is figuring out what skills companies are looking for,
Mm.
which a lot of times goes beyond what's taught in classes.
Yeah.
And then they try to incorporate that feedback into the university curriculum.
So it's a two-way street. Companies get interns, but the university also gets insights into what they need to teach to stay current.
Exactly. And it goes even further than that. They're also looking for new partnerships. Like maybe a company needs help with a research project or wants to make a new course together. And the director's the one making those connections happen.
Sounds like they need to be a pro negotiator, balancing the needs of the university, the students, and the businesses.
Oh yeah, for sure. It's a tough balancing act. Speaking of balancing acts, the afternoons shift focus to the students themselves. You might think that's when the director gets a break from the strategy stuff.
Yeah, I was imagining something more relaxed, like giving pep talks or helping with resumes.
Oh, it's definitely more hands-on than that. Think of them as a mentor and a problem solver. They're reviewing student reports, making sure the learning goals are being met, but they're also doing site visits to see if the internship environment's healthy and productive.
Site visits. That makes sense in an office, but so many internships are remote now. How does that work?
That's a really good question. It shows how this job is always evolving. Maybe they're doing virtual check-ins, joining online team meetings, or using digital tools to keep track of how engaged and how much progress the students are making remotely.
It's wild how technology is changing everything. So they're data analysts, they're building relationships, they're supervising remotely. What don't they do?
Well, eventually they get to the paperwork. Evenings are for administrative tasks. But even then, it's not just catching up on emails.
No way. They're like analyzing email open rates to optimize communication.
Maybe. But this is when they really focus on planning for the future. They design workshops and seminars for both the students and the supervisors at the companies.
So they're not just placing students in internships, they're providing support and development the whole way through. What kind of topics are we talking about here?
Everything from professional ethics and soft skills to the really interesting stuff like digitalization and artificial intelligence and emerging labor trends.
Wow, so they're not just reacting to what the job market is like now, they're trying to figure out what skills students will need years down the line.
Exactly. Having that forward-thinking mindset is so important in a world that's constantly changing.
This is incredible. I had no idea how much went into making a successful internship program.
It's a lot more than people realize. But all this work makes you think about the challenges and opportunities these directors face.
Yeah.
A lot more than people realize. But with all this intense activity, it makes you wonder about the challenges and opportunities these directors have to deal with.
Yeah, for sure. And right before the break, you were talking about how they're preparing students for the future of work. I gotta admit, I hadn't really thought about that as part of the job.
Oh, it's crucial. And it's often overlooked. Think about it. We're living in a time where technology is changing everything so quickly. Jobs are constantly changing. Entire industries are getting disrupted. The skills that are in demand right now could be totally useless in a few years. So how do you even begin to prepare students for a future that's so uncertain?
That is a good question. It almost feels like trying to hit a moving target, right?
Exactly. And that's where the internship director's role becomes even more important. They're not just helping students find any opportunity, they're helping them develop those really important skills like adaptability, resilience, critical thinking, the kind of things they'll need no matter what the future throws at them.
So it's not just about technical skills then, it's about those soft skills like communication, problem solving, being able to learn and adapt quickly. Those are the things that make someone valuable no matter what field they go into.
You got it. And the paper we're looking at really emphasizes that. The director wasn't just focused on finding internships that matched the skills students already had. They were looking for opportunities that would challenge them, push them outside their comfort zones, help them build those essential soft skills.
It's like they're a career matchmaker, but thinking about the long term, not just what works right now. But to do all that effectively, there must be some serious challenges. What are some of the biggest hurdles these directors face?
Well, burnout is a big one, as you can imagine. They're juggling data analysis, building relationships, mentoring students, and they always have to be ahead of the curve. It can be incredibly demanding. That's why it's so important for them to get support from the university.
When you say support from the university, what do you mean?
Well, they need resources, funding for new programs, chances to develop their skills, and most importantly, recognition for how important their job is.
Because internships are really that bridge between school and the real world. A good internship can launch a student's career, but a bad one can really set them back. Having someone dedicated to making sure those experiences are high quality and relevant is so important.
Exactly. And yet, way too often, internship directors are overworked, they don't have enough resources, and their work isn't really valued. They're seen more as administrators than educators, which really undermines the huge impact they have on students' lives.
It sounds like we need to change that. How can universities do a better job of supporting these unsung heroes?
Well, technology is a big one. Imagine if they had platforms that could take care of some of the admin stuff. Then they'd have more time for the strategic thinking and working directly with students.
Yeah. So instead of getting bogged down with paperwork and spreadsheets, they could focus on the human element of the job, which is ultimately what makes the biggest difference, right?
Right. And think about what's possible for the students. Personalized learning platforms could help them figure out their strengths, explore different career paths, even practice those soft skills we were talking about in a safe space.
Sounds like everyone wins. Technology streamlines things for the directors, and the students get more personalized and engaging experiences.
Exactly. But we have to be careful about how we use these technologies. We want to enhance the internship experience, not replace the human connection that's so essential.
For sure. We don't want students just interacting with algorithms and chatbots. There's no replacement for guidance and mentorship from a real person who cares about their success.
Absolutely. That's why the internship director's role is going to remain so important. Even as technology becomes more and more prevalent, they're the ones bridging the gap between the human and the digital, making sure students are prepared not just for the jobs that exist today, but for whatever challenges and opportunities come up in the future.
So they're not just internship directors, they're like architects of the future of work. It's a pretty huge responsibility. But this deep dive has really shown how challenging it can be. What's the one thing you'd want our listeners to take away from this conversation?
I hope they come away with a deeper appreciation for all the unseen forces that shape our journeys in education and work. We often focus on the individual's role in success, getting good grades, building a great resume, networking. But we rarely think about the people who create and support the systems that make those things possible.
And internship directors are a perfect example of that. They're the ones connecting the dots, creating opportunities, advocating for students behind the scenes.
Exactly. And without that kind of dedication and support, a lot of students would have a really tough time finding their way in the professional world.
It's a good reminder that success is rarely a solo act. There's a whole network of people working behind the scenes to support us. And sometimes all it takes is a little awareness and appreciation to make those efforts visible.
Well said. Speaking of awareness, the essay we've been talking about ends with a really interesting point about the director's role in ensuring quality internships. It got me thinking about the future of this profession.
Ooh, I'm intrigued. What do you think? So you were saying that this essay made you think about what's going to happen with internship directors in the future.
Yeah. The essay really stresses how important the director is for making sure internships are actually good and relevant, with how the job market is these days. But it got me wondering, how is this role going to change as the way we work keeps changing,
Mhm.
especially with things like remote work and globalization becoming even more common?
Yeah, that's a great point. Like, how do you even do a site visit if the site is just someone's home office, halfway across the world? And how do you even build those strong relationships with companies when everyone's working remotely from who knows where?
It's definitely going to require like some out-of-the-box thinking.
Mm.
And technology is going to be even more important, I think, not just for like the logistics,
Mm.
but for building those online communities and connections between students and companies.
So maybe the internship director kind of becomes this master networker, right?
Yeah.
Connecting people and opportunities across different countries using all these online platforms and tools, almost like they're running a global matchmaking service for talent.
Exactly. And think about the cultural awareness they'll need. More and more students are interning with companies in other countries. So the director will need to understand those cultural differences and help students adapt to different work styles and expectations.
It's like they need a crash course in like international business etiquette, conflict resolution styles, maybe even time zone management, on top of everything else they're already doing.
It really shows how this job is getting more and more complex and demanding. But it's also pretty exciting, right? They're right there on the front lines of shaping the future of work, helping students get ready for a globalized and digital job market.
Sounds like they need to be part data analyst, part diplomat, part tech guru, and part career counselor. All in one? No wonder they need so much support.
Absolutely. They need to be adaptable and always learning, always staying ahead of the curve.
Well, to all the internship directors out there listening, we have so much respect for the work you do. It's amazing. And we can't wait to see how you continue to shape the future of internships as the world keeps changing.
I totally agree.
And to our listeners, we hope this deep dive has given you a new perspective on the world of internship programs and the passionate people who make them work. If you've had an internship, think back to that experience. Who was the person behind the scenes making sure things ran smoothly and you got the most out of it?
Yeah, this might be a good time to reach out to them and say thank you. You might be surprised how much they appreciate it.
That's a great idea. All right, that's it for this episode of The Deep Dive. Until next time, keep learning, keep exploring, and keep diving deep into the fascinating world around us.